Welcome back, MTG Joe here. Today we are going to look at the best decks thus far after the release of Final Fantasy for the standard best of one format. We're going to look Platinum Mythic Rank. It's only been a couple days, so we're starting to accumulate data in. Having said that, if you have an older meta deck, they're still doing very well. We're going to probably not see huge shakeups until after the Pro Tour, which is the following weekend. While the Pro Tour will be best of 3, people usually port some versions over to best of 1. But we cover all the formats here on the channel. We'll start getting through, provided there's data, to stuff like Pioneer, Historic, as well as Timeless, kind of seeing where things land. So we're going to jump in. We get the data from UntapGG, what you see on the screen. Companion tool that runs alongside Arena's client, tracks your win rates, gives us a whole bunch of cool stats. Link for Untapped is in the video description. I'll also paste all these deck lists and timestamp them in the video description so you can find everything you need there in terms of lifting these lists. If you're still kind of tepid, usually, like I said, a week or so more, and then you can start spending wildcards if you're being a little conservative. And the populations may see swings as we kind of ebb and flows once we see more league information as it comes up. Towards the end of the video, I'm going to cover some decks that aren't doing well as well, just to kind of give you a heads up, because I usually get questions, what about X deck? Well, it's like 30% win rate, so we're not covering it here. So population-wise, Izzet Prowess about 11, Mono Red at 10, Mono Black Midrange at 6, Azorius Omni about 6, the Red Aggro is Boros Auras with the Fling. The Yuna deck, the Abzan variant at 4.2%. Green Landfall about 4. Rakdos Aggro, which is Mono Red with Fling. So kind of what we were anticipating, nothing huge spikes in terms of the meta. We're going to see 260,000 games played for the last 5 days of best of 1. So for stock decks like this Mono Red one, which has the highest win rate, we're not going to spend too much time. Basically, like I said, the only kind of tweak here is you see a Frenzied Goblin in here, which is not normally something you would see. Looks like a budget thing where they're just missing a Hired Claw. I would go ahead and switch this. I'm going to switch this on the video as well. The one card you may want to consider is Opera Love Song. That card, I was playing it in the Pioneer version. It's a 2 mana. It draws either, it's like the Reckless Impulse style, exile top 2 cards, you can play it on the turn, or it gives 2 creatures plus 2/0. So it's a way to trigger Valiant, so it's both a combat trick and card advantage. So the flexibility on that card is really nice, giving you some variability in terms of the games. But really, if you're just looking at efficient deck, this one can get you there. We have Selesnya Rabbits. Again, another deck that's pretty stock, 65%. Creature tribal deck, nothing new with the Final Fantasy deck. This one's playing up to Season of Burrow. Only 2 Knight Errant Evios. I think this card's probably something you want to be on a full 4 of, just helping you refill your hand. But the kind of strong draws are Valley Might Caller into like 1 or 2 drops, like 2 1-drops or another 2-drop into Hop to It, which just powers it up. Valley Might Caller into Valley Might Caller into Hop to It is a very strong line. And then you're just kind of going wide and then going tall as well with like Quest Caller as a Lord effect, Phineas putting counters on your things. We go to Azorius Omni combo, so 61%. So some of them are trying out Knights of the Round, so the new, I think it's 8 mana Saga or Summon Saga that makes a bunch of Knights. So it's a kind of backup plan. If you can't hit Omni, well, you just get a big Saga that can kind of overwhelm the board. Every turn giving you 3 counters until it kind of overruns your team. This one here is basically, for those unfamiliar, you put Omniscience into your graveyard through a variety of draw discard effects. Then you use Abuela's Awakening to get it back. With Invasion of Arcavios, you get Jeskai Revelation, and you just keep casting it over and over again, dealing 4 to your opponent while bouncing this to your hand to get it back from the graveyard and kind of go from there. You also have Meringue River Regent with things like Rolling Dragonstorm, so you can just present the board of like 4 Meringue Rivers and just kind of win that way there. So it's kind of a combo deck, very strong in what it's doing. So for the mono black deck, you'll see the win rate's actually higher, and you might be wondering why. So it's actually sequentially at this point in the best of 1 decks. It's just that the best of 1 version of this deck I don't think is built optimally, and I think this version's a lot cleaner. In particular, we get access to Demon Wall. And if you're wondering, why are we playing a Demon Wall, a thing that can't attack? Well, As the name alludes, Demon is also a demon, which means you can go Demon Wall into Unholy Annex on 3, which is a very nice curve. It gives you an early blocker that can block most of like the aggressive creatures of the format, and then it starts drawing you cards on turn 3 with Unholy Annex and draining your opponent. In the mono black shell, just a lot of removal, Annoyance with Affliction, Go for the Throats, Cut Downs, Hand Hate and Duress, and Deep Cavern Bat, Preacher, as well as Quasari, Karsi Revenant, that lets you have ways to kind of gain life, trade up, and then just prevent your opponent from wanting to necessarily attack. Top Archfiend on the kind of the top end with Shieldred, Gix Command to Sweeper, then Utility Lands and Fountain Port and Soulstone Sanctuary. So that would be kind of be the best of one version. In best of one, you may want to like even trim on an Archfiend, play a 4th cut down, but I think this version's a lot cleaner. The other version was just a little all over the place. I don't think Liliana's that great in best of one. You don't really want to give Omni a discard outlet, and against like the mono red decks or the go wide decks, it's not that great in terms of trading, whereas at least with this, like the Demon Wall blocks early. Even in the Pioneer version, I was trying it out, and it curves nicely, as well as Pioneer, like there's the mono red mouse deck there too, so it's a good blocker there. You could also just pump mana into it late, and then it gets counters, and then it starts a 5/5 Menace is a pretty strong beater at late game. So Boros Auras. So like I said, there's the Mardu version of this deck that's just got the Fling package, but this one here, it's going Boros and playing Lightning Army of 1. 3 mana, 3/2, first strike, trample, lifelink. A lot of great stats, especially if you could throw down some ethereal armors on it. And then whenever it deals combat damage to a player until your next turn, if a source would deal damage to that player or permanent, it deals double that damage. Now how this works is you can deal first strike damage, it deals damage, and then your creatures through normal combat would get that double damage as well, which is cool. The core of the deck is like a Auras theme, so protection, removal, evasion, monstrous rage just pushes through more damage, ethereal armor kind of scales, and then you could distribute counters with optimistic scavenger paired with the mouse package. We got 4-color Dino Reanimator, which is really just Jund Dinos. So this deck here is looking to draw discard. So Collector's Vault, Invasion of Urgamon, Seize the Spoils. And what you're trying to do ideally is put into your graveyard either Ghalta or Gishath, and then you Zombify or Rakdos joins up it. This Ghalta can put into play a whole bunch of dinos from your hand. Gishath can cheat into play a whole bunch of dinos. You can draw a bunch of cards with like Vaultborn Hydra, Itali, and Trumpeting Carnosaur, discover into more effects. But what you can also do is if you have Rakdos joins up, if you get multiple legends, they legend rule themselves, they die, and then Rakdos joins up, deals damage to your opponent. So it's really just trying to chain through your deck as much as possible, as quick as possible, try to survive to like turn 4-ish, and then unleash Jurassic Park on your opponent. All right. Bant Chocobo, not Chocobo, as many people pointed out with my mispronunciation on the last video. So this is Bant Birds, really, and there's going to be kind of 2 versions we'll look at. There's this Bant version at 58%, and then there's a Selesnya version right after. In Bant, you get access to Choco, Seeker of Paradise. So the big bird lord. So this one here, 4 mana, 3/5. It's got the landfall ability that a lot of these birds do. Notably, these birds don't fly, so keep that in mind. You see a bird, you see wings, you think fly, but think more kind of ground-bound, ostrich-based. Whenever one or more birds you control attack, you look at that many cards, you can put one of them in your hand, and then you put any of the lands into the battlefield. So it kind of triggers all that landfall. So cleans the lands off the top of your deck, and then puts cards into your hand. The interface is a little weird on this one. So just keep that in mind. Like the first selection is card in hand. I messed it up the first time and I put a land to my hand by accident. With this deck here, you have Traveling Chocobo. So this one here, it basically lets you play lands off the top of your library or cast birds. So it's kind of a Satyr Wayfinder, or not Satyr Wayfinder. Courser of Crufix, the Autumn one, just one of those like green 3-drops that lets you play utility off the top of your life. And then if a land triggers an ability, it triggers twice, so double landfall, any of those types of effects. This one's got a little bit more ramp in Llanowar Elf, but you have the small birdie here that when lands come to play, it gets counters. Mockingbird copy, Healer Hawk, just something that if you can get counters on or just make large enough, can get some utility. Side quests, raise a chocobo, makes a bird, and then if you have 4 more birds, you flip it, and then it's a landfall for all your birds. Valley Quest Caller, honorary bird, but it's a lord for birds. You have Plum Cream Mentor. Whenever another creature you control with flying enters, you put a counter on target creature you control without flying. So it kind of plays into the half of your deck's flying, half's not. And then the removal options, Bart's and Boko. 5 mana 4/3, affinity for birds, meaning that it costs 1 less for each bird you control. So sometimes it's going to be a 2 mana 4/3, and then your birds deal damage to any creature of your opponent's choose or that you choose. You have access to Cavern of Souls. This version's playing Fabled Passage. You can play the Courtyard that also kind of plays with a multicolor with birds. So there's a few different ways to kind of build the mana base here. The other version is Selesnya, so 57%. So a lot of kind of the similarities. You have Bart's, you have the Traveling, kind of your ramp package, but this version here is playing a little bit more counters themed. So Miner's Guidewing, just a vigilance one that lets you go offense defense. You have Innkeeper's Talent in here. Sheltered by Ghost can help you race, and then you have Aven Interrupter as a pseudo counter spell. The one thing with Thran Portal, change this to Starting Town. Starting Town's a better land that does a similar effect here. All right, Izzet Vivi, Izzet Prowess. So this version of the deck is not playing your Spheres, Drake Catchers, Slick Shots, so slightly less aggro in the traditional sense. But you have Vivi that whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you put a counter on it and it pings, and then once per turn on your turn, you can activate the 0 ability and add mana of combination blue or red equal to Vivi's power. This one's playing Astrologian's Planisphere. So job select comes in with a token attached to it, and then whenever you cast a non-creature, that creature gets a 1/1 counter added to it. So it lets you kind of scale, make tall threats. Gory Steel makes you wide threats, and then Vivi kind of powers through. So with this deck here, you have Burst Lightnings, Flood Maws, your draw package. This one's got Wild Ride. So interesting way here with Vivi, it gives you something to haste it right away, so it can get it up to, with the counter that would come onto it, 4 power. Lets you haste it right away to attack, and then generate 4 mana, which can then let you chain together some more stuff. And then it's something with the Harmonize you can cast from your graveyard as well late game to give you some more spells if you're hellbent in terms of no cards in hand, and then a full set of stock ups in the mana base or the top end to refill your hand. We got Cactuar, big old cactus boy, Reanimator. So how this deck works: draw, discard, mill into your graveyard cards that you want to reanimate. And then what you want to do is get into play Arden the Usurper. 8 mana, 4/4. Demons have Menace, Lifelink, and Haste. At the beginning of your combat, exile up to 1 target creature from your graveyard. If it was exiled this way, it becomes a token copy, except it's a 5/5 black demon, meaning it gets Haste, it gets Lifelink, and it has Menace. So then you get your Jumbo Cactuar into play, and then you attack for 9,999 Menace power. So you kind of have that. You have the Spina, another reanimation effect. You get to create copies of it, and then you also have Summon Bahamut as another reanimation threat. Use Zombify or Valgaboth's Faithful to bring things back. Then your usual kind of self-mill enablers. Your Overlords, your FOMOs, your Bitter Triumphs, Bitter Reunions, a lot of Bitter, Lily, Tursa, kind of all playing into that effect. Mono Green Landfall, 55%. So this deck here is looking to kind of combo kill your opponent, and built around predominantly Tifa Lockhart. So 2 mana, 1/2, trample. Whenever land you control enters, double Tifa's power until end of turn. So you have like Bristly Bill effects. You have Ordeal of Nylea, which works pretty cool with this. So 2 mana, whenever it attacks, you put a 1/1 counter. Then if it has 3 or more counters, you sacrifice the aura and you search for 2 lands. Works really nice with Mosswood Hydra as well, since it's naturally getting counters. Springbloom Druid is another way to kind of cheat lands into play. Traveling Chocobo gets lands off the top of your library, and then Bristly Bill puts counters on things, similar with the Saz's Chocobo. And then you have Escape Tunnel, Fabled Passage, Evolving Wilds, all ways to kind of trigger double Landfall. Bushwhack to find lines and fight, same with hard-hitting questions, deals damage, and then Snakeskin Veil for protection as well as counters. We have Naya Reanimator or Naya Yuna. So this one's a little bit more all in. So most of these will be like an Overlord style package. This one here is kind of playing a little bit more combo oriented, where you're just trying to get summon Knights of the Round or summon Bahamut as your top end. So you can either reanimate it with Abuelas on 4 or get it out with Yuna on your end step. You have the Invasion here, FOMO, Bitter Reunion, and Seize the Spoils, all as looting effects. You have Brotherhood's End as a sweeper, and then Torch Towers, more cheap removal. So playing a little bit more early removal, and then just really trying to turbo in as opposed to playing like the mid-range game, where you're trying to, you know, Overlord, Beans, kind of play that more fairish game. This one's realizing the speed. Let's just play Reanimator, but instead of bringing out Valgavoth, we're bringing out one of these big sagas instead. And then lastly, we have Golgari Self-Mill in terms of decks doing reasonable. We'll cover 3 decks that aren't doing so hot. So this deck here got some new cards in Diamond Weapon. So 8 mana or 9 mana, costs 1 less for each permanent in your graveyard, so not just creatures, for an 8/8 reach, and then you prevent all damage that would be dealt to Diamond Weapon. So the core of the deck is to put cards into your graveyard. Town Greeter is kind of that Satyr Wayfinder effect. You mill, you can put a land into your hand, and it kind of feeds your graveyard. Gnawing Vermin could mill yourself. Rebel Belt surveils cards into your graveyard. Beans draws cards off all these big effects. And then we also have X-Death, Void Warlock. Enters, you gain 3 life. Beginning of your end step, if there are 6 or more permanents in your graveyard, you flip it. And it just becomes X3 Trample with cards equal to the number of permanents in your graveyard. So a lot of ways kind of beat up on your opponent. And then we have Midgar, City of Mako. Just a way to kind of... It's a land that also gives you the adventure half of sack creature draw. So just your Village Rite style effect stapled to a land for added utility. Deck's not doing so well. Orzhov Sephiroth. So the sacrifice decks. This one's a little ambitious, going all the way up to 5 black in terms of Zodriak, Umbral God that forces sack. Avenge of the Fallen, just more ways to kind of mobilize. This one's playing a mobilized sub-theme, Voice of Victory, Sinkhole Severe. You have kind of some sack effects with Bartholomew, Blood Artist effects. Forsaken Miner is a card that's really good with Sephiroth, because if you can get things to sack, each black mana you have is basically another way to bring it back. But just like Dorks, you sack to try to flip Sephiroth. Full Midgar in here as well, trying to use that draw discard effect. So not the greatest win rate there. Selesnya Yuna, so more of the mid-rangey version. Dredger's Insight, Esper Origins, Overlords to try to then cheat out the big stuff. Just a bit slower, not as dedicated, really no interaction, which can't really do in best of 1. That one's up 44%. And Boros Equipment, solid 30%, 150 games. So trying to build a deck with Cloud, a whole bunch of like equipment style things. You have Freya in here, Nahiri, Kellen, and then just like your Corey Steels, your Chainsaws, Lightning Axe, Buster Sword, GT, Lava Spur, just a bunch of equipments, just not really doing that well. So these 3 decks you might want to consider holding off this kind of archetype for the time being in terms of wild cards. That's it for the week. Good luck those playing. Hopefully you find a deck that works for you, and let me know what you think in the comments, how Final Fantasy's been so far. Have a great one.